What's good everyone? Today I come to you all with a video on how each puppet combo villain got their name. I know some of these names are pretty straightforward and obvious, but I thought maybe some people would still be interested in this topic, so let's get right into it. So first we have the Night Ripper. Now the Night Ripper gets their name from a combination of different things, but for starters, the most obvious things we can point to is the way the Night Ripper kills his victims and who he was based off of. If it wasn't clear, the Night Ripper likes to stalk and attack his victims deep into the night to catch them off guard while they're coming off work, as seen with Rachel, or just in general with prostitutes that roam the streets as we've seen. The other way he got his name was also just because he was inspired by Jack the Ripper, a very famous serial killer. If you don't know who Jack the Ripper was, he was an unidentified murderer who terrorized the Whitechapel district of London in 1888, murdering at least 5 women, all of whom were prostitutes. The gruesome nature of the killings, which involved severe mutilations as well as the mystery surrounding his identity, have made him one of history's most infamous criminals. You can obviously see the connection between these two despicable people, and that's how I believe not only how he was dubbed in-game in the world of Night Ripper, but also how Puppet Combo themselves named him. Next up we have the Nun, and well, yeah, her name is pretty straightforward and doesn't have any real depth to it. I think it's overwhelmingly clear that the nun from Nun Massacre is obviously a nun, and there's not much backstory for why she's called the Nun. She wears the outfit of a nun, and she lives in a Catholic orphanage, as we've seen in the game, so yeah. I know they're not really the same, but Mother Apollonia carries the same reasons as to why the word mother is placed before her name, you know, being a nun and all. So here we have the Mysterious Man or Tall Man from Day 7. Again, with this villain, their name is extremely straightforward and more of a result of their physical appearance, just as the nun was. We barely see him throughout the game and we don't know his motives, which is how he is mysterious, and he's also freakishly tall, which is why he's also known as the Tall Man. Next up we have Billy from Feed Me Billy. Now it's probably very obvious that this villain's name is Billy, but if you know a bit about the lore and also if you check his Puppet Combo wiki, you will see that he has a slew of aliases such as Ray, Mike, John, Fred, Jack, and Steven. If you're wondering why he has all of these aliases, it's actually because he uses all of these names to disguise his identity to lure his victims so he can eventually feed them to the hole. I actually want to give a quick shout out to Billy for helping me find this out, because I actually didn't know all of this, so please go follow him. Next up we have the Easter Ripper from Murder House. So off the bat, this character is obviously modeled and inspired by a bunny, which is the animal most closely associated with the Easter holiday. The events of Murder House take place on Easter Day, well, the intro at least, and that's a clear connection for why the word Easter is in their name. As for the Ripper part, well, yeah, I think we all know why he has the word Ripper in his name. By combining both words, we have a very simple and straightforward name that explains not only his origins, but also his way of killing his victims as well. So next in line we have Nicholas Burr from Babysitter Bloodbath. Apart from his known aliases being his straight up regular name, he is also referred to as the Boogeyman. I'm sure there's more explanation for his name in the Babysitter Bloodbath novel, but I'm just gonna take a wild guess that he's also called the Boogeyman simply because of the way he scares and attacks his victims, as well as the fact that he targets children. As we all know growing up, the Boogeyman is a mythical creature often used in folklore to scare kids. It is portrayed as a mysterious being that hides in the shadows, preying on those who misbehave or disobey their parents. This term is also used to refer to any sinister or frightening figure, which is how it was used for Nicholas Burr as well. Nearing the middle of the list we have the Driller Killer, and I'm sure you can all kind of guess why he has this name. Unlike other villains on this list, the Driller Killer is one of the few villains to actually be named after their weapon of choice. As we see in the games Night Watch and Power Drill Massacre, the Driller Killer uses a power drill tool to chase and penetrate his victims. Pause. And there's really not that much else to it. His power drill is loud, grisly, and large, which makes for an iconic and memorable name. Following the Driller Killer, we have the Womb Ripper from Bloodwash. So I think her name actually does a good job at hinting at what they do, which is of course attacking pregnant mothers and targeting their womb area, which holds the baby. To sum it up really quickly, The Womb Ripper's actual name is Samantha Rhodes, and she was a tragic figure who turned into a serial killer after enduring severe trauma. She lived in Youngstown, Ohio, and worked at West End Laundry, where she suffered abuse from her boss, Lewis Kennedy. After surviving a fire set by Lewis to hide her pregnancy, which left her disfigured and caused the loss of her baby, Samantha went insane. She began targeting pregnant women, driven by insanity and resentment, brutally attacking them and performing horrific rituals, leading to her infamous name, the Womb Ripper. So for the glass staircase, we have Dr. Edward Sullivan, and well, his name is just his regular name. Dr. Edward Sullivan was a doctor at Queen Mary's Hospital in London who served as a field medic during the Great War. Upon returning home in 1918, he experienced PTSD-induced visions of an eldritch god, which led him to obsessively research the phenomenon and attract a following of zealots. His mansion transformed into a laboratory where he attempted to summon the eldritch god, but he ultimately realized his error and tried to stop the experiment, suffering the side effects of his own science. He is also referred to as just the Doctor. Next up, we have the Cannibal Killer from Cannibal Abduction. This name is pretty straightforward and can easily be explained. The Cannibal Killer, aka Philip, takes in wandering strangers to his place of stay, where he then murders them, cuts them up, where he either feeds them to the creatures down in the dweller area, or feasts on them himself alongside his father and mother. Larry from Christmas Massacre also has a few names such as the Blood Maniac and the Texas Butcher that just so happen to be the title of the games he stars in. If any of you have seen Christmas Massacre and Blood Maniac, then I'm sure you can see why he's called a Blood Maniac. He is easily the most ruthless and unforgiving villain on this list, massacring an entire religious orphanage when he was young, as well as continuing to end countless lives later into his adulthood. Larry also originally originates from the game Texas Butcher, where he wreaks terror to the population of Texas. In one of the sites, it states that his actual name is Lawrence, but I couldn't find any information on this, so if any of you can validate this name, that would be great, but for now, he's just regular old Larry Ski. So next we have Dylan from Deadly Night. Apart from Dylan being the name given to him from birth by his mother, he also goes by the Psycho and the Cannibal. He's probably referred to as the Psycho because he goes around his van capturing people to bring them back to his house and lock them up. As for the cannibal part, there's a lot of body parts around his home which he eats, and he of course adopted this lifestyle from Mr. Miller, a father who adopted him earlier on in his life. Mr. Miller kept Dylan on a diet of only human flesh, so over time that just became Dylan's food of choice. Up next we have our beloved Butcher, who also famously goes by the Night Shift Abductor. He earned his name through his brutal and horrifying actions. The Butcher is a sadistic serial killer who abducts and kidnaps people during their night shifts, particularly targeting those who work late hours in isolated locations such as Deborah, which is the character we play as in Night Shift. He takes his victims to his house, where he subjects them to gruesome torture and ultimately butchers them in his kitchen, as we've seen time and time again. He basically goes around abducting those working graveyard shifts as well as 24-hour stores, where he brings them back to his house and cuts them up like a butcher would to any regular old piece of meat. The Booty Creek Cheek Freak got their name strictly from where they live and what they go after. The Booty Creek Cheek Freak is a mysterious entity who haunts Booty Creek and is known for attacking victims by targeting their cheeks, of course. This distinctive method of attack, combined with the location where he rampages, led to the formation of their unusual and memorable name. He's a freak who attacks cheeks at the creek. Pretty straightforward. Next up we have Santa from Planet of the Bloodthirsty Santa, and he's also referred to as the Red Demon by some characters. Santa is described as bloodthirsty because he slaughtered many elves, even to the point where he has blood splattered all over his clothes. Because of this, it's probably why he's called the Red Demon, since not only is Santa's outfit mostly red, but he also has all the blood of the elves on it, and he's become a monster. So the Mutilator from Meat Cleaver Mutilator gets his name from the method in which he attacks his victims, as well as the weapon he uses. It's pretty obvious and implied that the Mutilator uses a cleaver to hunt down his victims, and then proceeds to mutilate them afterwards. One of my favorite things about this game in general is the game cover, because it looks so cool to me, and it's obviously very gruesome. Nearing the end of the list, we have the Ding Dong Ditcher Ripper, and they actually have a name that makes sense when it comes to what they do. So to very quickly explain who he is and why he is the way he is, the Ding Dong Ditcher's actual name is Vic Matheson, or I don't know how to pronounce it. Vic earned his name from his notorious childhood pranks of ding-dong ditching. On Halloween night in 1974, Vic, driven by a voice in his head, brutally murdered 5 people in his attic, leading to his arrest and commitment to the state asylum. Despite attempts to cure him, Dr. Pleasant concluded that Vic was pure evil. Then, 10 years later, Vic escapes during a riot, returning to his old neighborhood to continue his reign of terror, especially targeting his younger brother Rex, which leads into the events of Ding Dong Dead. Finally on the list, we have Slaw from Rewind or Die. So I really couldn't conclude how he got his name, but from my guess, it's kind of a play on the word slaughter. Once Slaw captures you, he brings you to his meat packing plant, which also serves as a slaughterhouse for his victims. This might be a stretch, but Slaw also sells his human meat through his side business shop and calls them Slaw's Mystery Meats, which to me sounds like just a combination of all the different victims he's butchered, similar to the real life food Slaw, which is also a combination of cabbage, carrots, and other raw shredded vegetables. So that concludes the list. I know some of these names were obvious and didn't really need explanation or clarification, but it was still fun to look at some of our favorite villains and how they got their name. I'm sure I missed a killer here or there, but I think I got all of them for the most part, even if they're not exactly from Puppet Combo. Anyways, I hope you all enjoyed the video and I love you all for watching. I'll catch you all in the next one. See ya.